this in corporate plays. We'll groove through it all in funky ways. So join us now, let's find our way. Listen to Pips and Pivots every single day. Ooh, get money, get paid.
Hey, today's episode is with Troy Munson. This is episode 1 of 2. And Troy is someone who just I became aware of through LinkedIn, probably within the last calendar year of the recording date of this. And I mean, he just had awesome sales takes. It was really good, or it is. I don't know why I'm saying was, like he hasn't passed away or anything. He has really good sales content. His takes are good. He was carrying a bag until not too long ago. And he's the CEO of a company called Dimmo. They spell it wrong like every other tech company. So Dimmo. And it's interesting. Like, we talk about what they do a little bit in the episode. And check out this old Christmas book. So this is it's Christmas time, obviously, when I'm recording this, but this is from when I was a little boy. My mom had this for me and she gave it to my wife. And then check out how funny this picture is. Oh, wait, if we could see that. Yeah, so my son was, that's the first time he met Santa Claus. He was terrified. And that's my little brother, Jeremiah. So I do Big Brothers, Big Sisters. And that's my little brother, Jeremiah. We took him to see Santa Claus years and years ago. And yeah, my son was fucking terrified. The reason I wanted to talk to Troy is because he's kind of like a serial entrepreneur. So he had 2 or 3 startups before this latest one that he started and had successful exits with as a full-time account executive. And also like at a high level as an account executive. Like, he wasn't just an average account executive. Like, he was a regular quota crusher, going to President's Club on the regular, that type of shit at good, well-known companies. I think he was mostly like, I don't know if he was enterprise or mid-market or whatever, but check out my light I put in. It's called a Sputnik light. But anyway, I was like, oh, I'm sure people that listen to Pips and Pivots have side hustles and they want to figure out, like, how can I do this successfully and be successful full-time as a seller and kind of like do both and maybe eventually like transition to entrepreneurship full-time. So that's what I wanted to center the conversation around with Troy. So yeah, that's what this is all about. If you're into that, continue listening. If you're not, just have it on in the background and do other stuff. Be sure to like and subscribe. And here is 1 of 2 with Troy Munson from Dimmo.
Buy through the site, which would be cool one day. Then that's a different story, but not yet.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like a slam dunk for like kind of an affiliate model, you know?
Yeah.
If that's not already in place, but yeah. Well, okay. So you mentioned you were in AE for 8 years, but you're also like, I think this is your 3rd company that you founded. Is that right?
I would say 3rd one since my corporate life. Yes, there's been so many other smaller things that have made money, but never like millions of dollars. But yeah, I love creating things.
Yeah, and it looks like you had like a couple of exits. So, I mean, you're a successful AE and concurrently you were kind of moonlighting as a founder and you had success there too. And so like this podcast, it's all about just career issues and career development and career strategy for sales reps. And I'm sure like a lot of the people that listen, actually, it's just my mom and this woman in Nigeria that listens, but other people, like, I'm sure they'd be really interested. Like, how do you just crush quota from 9 to 5 and then clock out and actually have success as a founder, you know, building a startup? So it's kind of an open-ended question, but I'm curious, maybe we could just start with like the first company you founded and, you know, what was the motivation for that and how you went about it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to start this all right now? Am I making?
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. How do I turn? Every single app has those. I'm gonna turn those off so it doesn't.
Do I have it too? No. Lame.
Yeah, and it shows mine are off. Okay. Yeah. So So I guess for starters, so I've been in sales. I kind of got, just like most people, I got into it by accident. I was gonna go get into oil and gas. When I graduated college, oil and gas wasn't really doing hot, so I didn't. got into sales, got into cybersecurity sales. But I always, for some reason, I always get really bored at about like, well, I mean, I'm always bored in general. I feel like I went to sales. My first 2 years, I didn't do any sort of side gigs. It was more just like, let me grind sales. And I realized, wow, I'm like decent at this. Like I'm booking a lot of meetings. I'm closing a lot of deals. Like this is kind of fun. But then I just like, I can't sit still. I can't think about one thing. I'm constantly like, my brain is constantly going. It drives me nuts. Even to this day, like I'm solely focused on Dimmo and only Dimmo. And I'm like, oh, like squirrel. Oh, email. Oh, what is this? Oh, there's cookies in the pantry. Let me go. Like I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I founded was actually when COVID hit. And when I say first thing I founded in my corporate life, it's actually when COVID hit. And I was at MongoDB, amazing company, best company I've worked for so far. But an incredible company. And I was booking a lot of meetings while other people were struggling. And it's because I spent a lot of time on LinkedIn. I wasn't posting on LinkedIn at this time yet, but I spent a lot of time like understanding my prospects on LinkedIn, sending videos on LinkedIn. And I had like this really strict LinkedIn workflow. From 8 to 10 a.m., I was on LinkedIn focused on booking meetings, and it was working really well. Then Mongo asked me to essentially do like trainings for people to book meetings through LinkedIn. And I would do trainings weekly. And I was like, wait a second, what if I just use these same trainings and what if I just took these same trainings and I pretty much like bucketed it up and sold it to like Series A, Series B companies, and I just taught them exactly what I did. So that was called Soft Leap. It was a services company. That was the first thing that I founded. And then actually, there's the theme here. And the theme is, one thing is like, how do you manage your time? A lot of it's like I couldn't manage my time. And that's why I had to sell these companies or shelf. This one I actually had to shelf it because once I was working with 3, 4, 5, 6 different companies, I think we got up to 12 on Softly, but it was like this 4-week kind of training thing that I put together. I only charged a couple $1,000s for it. I was not charging enough. I didn't know what I could charge, but it was essentially just me every week. I would do like a 30-minute to a 1-hour training of exactly what I was doing on email, exactly what I was doing on LinkedIn. And then there was like one other thing that I taught about, but it became like way too taxing. And you can't, in my opinion, you can't really run a services or training. I wouldn't say services. I would say training business if you're doing the actual training at the same time as doing a sales 9 to 5 like that. One, you got to do the trainings in the middle of the day, and then you got to follow up with them and create deliverables. Like there was this whole thing that went into it, and each company was different. Each company was in a different stage. So that's what I did.
Scalable. Yeah.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one just, I was like, all right, shelf it. But what's really interesting is, and I think that with this whole side gig thing, people underestimate what can come from it, even if it fails. And so what I mean by that is one of our, actually it wasn't even a customer. This guy loved how I got a hold of him via email. He said it was like the best email he's ever received. We became friends, and then he actually became some sort of, I guess you could say, mentor to me. And then 3 years later, I ended up working for him, and I made the most money in my life that year. Well, last year was different, but until then, I made the most money in my life in my sales career by just like prospecting into him, failing, couldn't close the deal, but then he brought me over 3 years later to the company he was at, and then I did extremely well, and I was like, this is awesome. Like this is all from a side gig that I started 3 years ago. So even if you fail, like there's so many doors it can open.
Oh yeah. No, that's awesome. And like the whole thing about you just like being easily distracted by other things. Like we were talking, before this, it's like the whole reason why I started this podcast. Like I just get really curious about things, and it's like, oh, I want to try that. And just like, and as a result, like I have a podcast, I do coaching, I have a newsletter, and like I was telling you before, I just do them all half-assed because like you talked about with the services aspect, just it's a time suck. Like it's the work doesn't happen unless you're the one at your computer, hands-on keyboard, actually doing the work. So like as far as from a time management perspective, when you were a seller and you're starting these other companies, like just tactically, like how would you manage your schedule and like be able to like compartmentalize and silo those different things?
Yeah, so the way that I talk about this is you have to sacrifice something if you're working 2 jobs. Like that's at the end of the day, like that's it. There's not this secret where it's like, oh, if you did this and max, maybe nowadays with like AI creating all these summaries and productivity hacks and things, like maybe you can get by a little faster. But at the end of the day, like for example, I've woken up at 4 a.m. almost every single day for the last 7 years. And it's because, one, it became a habit. It's a shitty thing to do.
Shit.
I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it for anybody. But now that I have a kid, and I actually have a second on the way, and so
Congrats.
Thanks, man. Thanks. That's my only alone time, right? Like, to get away from love my wife, but to get away from my wife, to get away from my kids. It's like, get me away and like let me just have me time. So I wake up at 4 and I'm alone till about like 6:15, and I'll either go to the gym, I'll go on a run, and then I'll get some work done. But all that to say, on the time management perspective, like when I was doing Soft Leap, let's talk about this one since we were already on that topic, and it was services. Every single training I did was during my lunch hour. So during work, I had a 12-1 block off every single day. And if I had a training, I would do it. If not, I'd go eat lunch. But then again, there's sacrifices somewhere. I didn't have kids when I was doing Soft Leap. So after work, like after 5 p.m., it's like 5 to 7, I'm working on it, or maybe 9 to 10, I'm working on it. Like you got to sacrifice something, whether that's time with your significant other, time with your children, whatever it might be, or sacrifice the quality of work you're doing at your regular job. But then at that point, that can also have its consequences and repercussions and stuff like that. And so I think truly most sales jobs, AE jobs, okay, I'm going to speak on AE specifically. I think most of them don't really require a 9 to 5. And this is a horrible thing to say, and maybe we shouldn't even say this, but I think that if your time management is good and you're busting your ass prospecting, I think that things just kind of fall into place. If you do the same thing every single day for 3-4 hours a day, like, and you're doing the right activities, I think that you can get your job done 6 hours, 7 hours a day. Like, I think that you can find ways to make time. But again, I sacrifice having to wake up early. So I sacrifice sleep. I sacrifice some time that I could have spent with people in my life and stuff like that. And so sacrifice and a little bit of time management.
Yeah. No, hell yeah. And I agree with you too. I think most corporate jobs, like that's kind of it's kind of like a quiet part we're saying out loud, right? Like I think like I know I can definitely get through my work a lot faster than, 40 hours in a week. But it's interesting, and this is like kind of off topic, but it's interesting, like we have all these productivity tools, we have all this AI, we have all this stuff so we can essentially get more work done in less time. But then we never talk about like, well, let's just make our work week like 4 days and 32 hours, but all get paid the same. It's the answer is always more work. So I don't know. It's just like a funny thing.
This is Noah. Noah sells software. He's not LinkedIn famous or anything, but he's a solid sales rep. And like a lot of us, he's faced some serious bad luck over the past few years. First, there was a layoff due to COVID. Then came a rift due to economic headwinds. And just when he thought he'd found the right fit, the company he was at got acquired, and he was let go shortly thereafter. Noah's resume looks bad, like really, really bad, and he worries that his luck is never going to change. He fears this pattern of bad luck is going to continue, and he's going to be constantly looking for the right job. His confidence is at an all-time low. In his weakest moments, he wonders if maybe sales just isn't for him. It's not just about finding the next role, it's about finding stability and overcoming the perception that he's a job hopper and unreliable. Noah discovers a course called Elevate Your Sales Career, designing a 5-year plan for success. It promises to arm him with insights, knowledge, and frameworks to determine exactly what he needs to do to change his luck and turn his career around. After taking the course, Noah steps back into the job market with confidence and a reliable plan for a stable, successful future in sales.
Capitalism.
It is. And I'll even touch on that a bit farther. Now that I'm running Dimmo, I'm a hypocrite. Okay. And so now I'm like, damn, now I see why it's important to have your employees work from like an 8 to 5 kind of schedule, 8 to whatever, 9 to 5. And so now I'm like, and obviously I do that. I probably work more than I've ever worked in my life right now, but I love it. It's so fun. But now I'm like, we only have one real employee, and I'm like, and she's amazing. She's incredible. She works at different hours of me. Like, she likes to stay up in the middle of the night and get her job done and stuff like that. And my whole thing is, if you can get your job done, great. But yeah, it's like, it's weird. When you run your own thing and you get behind the steering wheel, you're like, all right, now these things are starting to make sense. But yeah.
Yeah. No. You
Yeah.
want that regularity, and you want people. It's about access. You need access to people during when you're
Yeah.
working and you're dialed up. What So it was, what was it? Soft Leap, you said it was the first one. What was the one that came after that?
So the one that came after that was a company called Vocal. And essentially what I do is I take something that annoys me or something that would be nice to have, and I figure out a way to build this. So this was actually my first tech that I built, and I outsourced the engineering team overseas. It was a nightmare, but it's all on me. Like I had an idea, and I was like, hey, go build this idea. But what I've realized is when you're working with teams kind of either overseas or someone that doesn't create the idea with you, they can't just draw it up. Like they do what they do what you say you should. They essentially do what you tell them to build, right? And so it's not like they do it and then they think about, okay, but what if we did it this way, or this way would be a little bit better. It's like, oh, he wants me to build this, I'm going to build this. And so that's my fault. I had no idea how to build it, but what it was called Vocal, and it was a place. I call it the business professional OnlyFans. And so the way that it worked was I wanted to get into real estate flipping. There's this guy that I followed on Instagram. He had a course for like thousands of dollars. And I was like, this is outrageous. I'm 20 something, like 23 or whatever I was at the time, years old. I was like, I can't just dish out this much on a course. And I was also like, this is just a canned course. Like he doesn't know where I'm at in my life.
Yeah.
My whole thought was, why can't I just book 5 minutes with him, 10 minutes with him, and pay him a price that he wants to create? So $100, $200, whatever that time is, whatever he thinks his 5 minutes is worth, and let him know, like, hey, I've got X amount of thousands of dollars in my savings. This is where I'm at. Like, this is where I live. What should I do in regard? Like, how should I get started? Why can't I just have that quick conversation with them? So I outsourced this engineering team to build a platform that had essentially business influencers, and then you can book time increments with them, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 40 minutes, doesn't matter. You can book whatever you want. They would choose the monetary value for that time slot. And then, when you book that time, you'd pay for it. Zoom calendar link would go on both of the schedules, and then you would have a conversation. But we had 11 professionals is what we called them on the site. And altogether they had around 27 million followers. They were all posting about us, like, hey, I'm going to go live on the site tomorrow. And I'm like, hell yeah, this is sick. I'm about to get my big break here. Next thing you know, the site is completely broken. And it's because we tested it and stuff, but when you test it at scale, it's a completely different thing. So dude, no one could book time. No one could, the payments didn't work. And so I asked the team to fix it, and they were like, it's going to be $30,000. And I was like, I don't have that money. I'm not that rich. And so, I ended up having to sell that company. And luckily I found this one company who had like 3 million subscribers to their newsletter, and they were looking to monetize it in more ways. I don't know if they rebranded it and launched it as something different or not. I actually have no idea where it's at today, but they bought it because their whole goal is, how do we activate these 3 million followers to pay for us? So yeah.
Nice. Oh, what a nightmare though. Like he must have been just like, panic and sweaty palms and just, stomach churning once you realize that, like, oh, people can't use this thing that, is being promoted.
Dude, it was, I mean, you got to go through it. I feel like anytime you have some sort of big launch, something goes wrong, and that's just, it went really wrong. It went as wrong as it could go, but it's all right. I learned from it, and I was able to sell it, and I was able to make just as much back that I paid for it. So I wasn't too mad, and it was so good to understand. Like, that's when I first understood, holy cow, you can build something pretty quick and you can make money pretty easily if you have something that's appealing. So
how long was the time period from when you're like, ooh, I have this idea, until like you're actually launching and the site breaks?
So I got quoted about 3 months to build it from this team. It really took about 5 or 6 months. So I'd say about half a year it took. And
half a year.
That
seems really fast.
It is. And I think actually even today you can spin something up way faster than that. Like, the next company I spun, like Dimmo, we spun up in 3 months. The one referral that I sold before Dimmo, we spun up in like 3 or 4 months. So technology is like co-pilots and things like that with GitHub and stuff just make things a lot easier to build.
No code platforms out the wazoo. Referral, that sounds like it was your most successful venture before a demo.
Yeah. So that's what's beautiful is everything is getting more and more successful.
Nice.
So referral, same thing. There was just I was at a company and they had this incredible referral program, man. It was, you would get $20,000 if you referred somebody and they became a customer. $20,000 is nuts. Like if you refer 10 people and 2 of them became a customer, and that typically referrals have a higher close rate than that. So that's $40,000 in your bank account just for spending probably 5 minutes total, right? Just saying, hey, here's a person. But nobody was following up on this referral program. It was just like it was what it was. It was just like it was there. No sales reps were actually reaching out to people saying, hey, like this would be a good fit for you, or hey, this is like our referral program. And then every single meeting that we jumped on, the VP would be like, why the hell is nobody getting referrals? And when you look at it, like I said, sales wouldn't ask, marketing wouldn't ask, customer success wouldn't ask. Nobody would ask. And so I was like, there's got to be an easier way here. And if they did ask, they asked one time and they never asked again because they forget. Like we have stuff to do in our day. So essentially what I thought of was like, why don't we just automate this whole process? And I was actually building it for the team to use internally. And I found, we can get into how I found my co-founder later, but I found a co-founder to build this one. So I didn't actually have to pay for it. It was a 50-50 equity split. And it was essentially, let's automate the outreach. Let's automate the payments, and let's automate the tracking. Like let's connect into HubSpot and Salesforce to see like, hey, did they become an opportunity? Did they do closed won? And when they did, it was pretty cool. You could actually choose when we triggered the payments. So like if it became an op, then you can trigger a payment. If it became closed won, you can trigger a payment. If it became an MQL, you can trigger a payment, like things like that. But yeah, so our whole thing was like, let's automate that. Let's automate the payments. Let's automate the reporting. So how much revenue we're driving for you. And that's it. Like, let's just build it. And so that's what we built. And we had a handful of several annual customers.
What was your workload like at that point? Like, can you talk about like just working full time as an AE? Like, what are some of the okay, let me ask it a different way, and let me ask a couple questions. Like, obviously 9 to 5, you have this other thing that you're really passionate about that you're working on after hours. Like, how would you free up time for yourself during the day so that you had more time to work on referrals? So I would imagine like you really focused on getting more efficient as an AE and kind of like maybe deprioritizing some tasks that you would normally do that weren't really revenue drivers, and then really just shifting your focus on things that were really meaningful in terms of getting you towards quota. So do you remember like kind of what that planning was like, or what that time management philosophy was like at that time for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was at a startup company when I was doing this.
All right. Tune in next week for part 2 with Troy Munson of Dimmo. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like, subscribe, comment, share with friends. Ask me questions in the comments if you want to. Like, I'll answer them. Follow me on LinkedIn. Follow me on Twitter. Subscribe to the newsletter. Go to my I was just walking around. I'm out of breath. I've had a cold for like 2 weeks. I know they tell you not to have too many CTAs, and I just gave you like 20 of them. So just pick one. Whatever's the easiest one, just do it. And that's it. I appreciate you spending time on me. Love you. Bye.